Hello. Hopefully this thing is on. Trying more of a hands-free setup this time. So I bicycle to the dollar store. Now I gotta save that gas.
Contact the police with you are trespassing and your activities are being recorded.
It's Saturday. Lots of activity out here. Well, not really. Generally around this time, people are partying. The rave. They're starting to strike up the rave and stuff. I can't afford it. And I know a lot of other people can't afford it. But I'm going to try anyways. Because people need things to do. Even when there's an economic downturn, people still want to have fun. They still want to do things. They don't want to sit in their house all day. Well, that's if they have a house. By the time everything's done and over with. Which was going to lead to a topic that I was going to talk about, which was what would I do if I became homeless, which is theoretically a possibility for a lot of people going forward. But I'm going to be talking about today. I say that I'm going to put that on the back burner, but what I'm going to talk about today is about the last video from yesterday of how I started coding and getting into tech. Now, to clarify, I am not a tech professional. A tech professional would mean I had years of experience and people pay me for the work that I do on computers. And that's not the case. Unofficially, I've had at least one person pay me for computer work. And no company wants to hire me. And I'm going to get to that in the vlog here. But everybody else wants it for free. And if you couldn't do it yourself, and you brought somebody over to do something for you, generally you wouldn't be getting that for free, especially if, you were a company yourself and you were hiring an independent contractor. But what I noticed is a lot of these companies, if you don't give it to them for free, your talents, what you can actually do, will never actually get out into the world. I've been honestly thinking about just making a whole YouTube channel based on all the stuff I've made to actually promote my advertising business. It may work, it may not work out, but I could at least try. Will it be free? It'll cost me my time. But let's see what happens with that. But talking about getting into the journey to go into tech. Now, if you would have asked me back in 2013, 2014, when I was busting up concrete with sledgehammers, working on construction sites, and being an iron worker, would you have found me tippy-tapping behind a computer? And the answer is no. In fact, at that time, I thought computers were just for, neurodivergent people, put it that way. The neurodivergent people would tippy-tap on the computers, play their World of Warcraft or whatever MMO, and they were basically, in most people's eyes, basement dwellers. And they possibly, usually, were men with neck beards. By the way, I'm probably going to say something on this video that gets me even further cast into the shadow of the YouTube unknown spirit. It seems like I'm already being shadow banned, and I think it was because I posted some things on other people's channels, just a few comments here and there, and I'm already banished to the shadow realm of YouTube forgetfulness, so I won't be doing that anymore. By the way, my subscribers, I subscribe back to you guys. Some of you are missing some videos, probably some soft puppet accounts. I'm not mad at it, I do it too. But, thanks for the subs, by the way. Like I said, we'll just continue the circular economy just like everybody else does. You subscribe to me, I'll subscribe to you. But, back to the neckbeards. The neckbeards was in their basements, tickety tapping alcove. But by 2015, the problem with code is that code and computer work in general, it works in the background. It's not something that's instant. You don't instantly know that, this program or whatever is helping you. This person in their basement that developed this thing in solitude, actually, that thing got pushed up into the standard library, our standard code base, or may even be in the OS kernel. Like the hack that happened not too long ago, the XZ kernel, was just some guy that made something back in the early 2000s, and he was going through it. He was going through a depression. He was going through all kinds of things. I think he had medical issues and all kinds of sorts. But it was just that one guy, and then somebody took his program and they spread it all over, and then it ended up in the kernel of Linux, and he was the only maintainer. Him and maybe somebody else, and then somebody else fell off, and he became the only maintainer. The point being is that a lot of the internet and the operating systems and everything that we like is maintained by some guy in his basement in Nebraska, some neckbeard that gets no credit. You don't go looking for him because it's not up front and center. So 2014, 2015 rolls around, and all of a sudden everyone's telling you to learn the code. They're not saying it to the reporters yet. It hasn't been a giant predicament where everybody would be getting laid off from their companies. A certain event that happened in 2019 that I'm not going to say, but it's there. It's there, and what's happening is, in 2015, is these people, these Googles, these Amazons, or whatever, these FANG companies started coming out and saying they would pay hundreds and thousands of dollars, way more than you're making, swinging a sledgehammer and doing hard labor, physical labor. Probably pay twice as much for that, for tippy tapping on a keyboard and solving coding puzzles, algorithmic puzzles that make the internet work. So time goes by, I jump back and forth doing the laboring thing, being a tradesman, quote unquote, what everybody's telling you to do today, And our company, I get back to a company. By the way, let me start off with saying that being a tradesman was never cool. I've been a machinist. I've been a laborer, concrete layer, pipe fitter, an iron worker. And I gotta tell you, they always want you to come in as a freaking journeyman with your own truck, your harness, all your tools, and then they want to pay you $1 over minimum wage. And that has not worked. Then, back in 2014, when I started, technically I started before that, and it's not going to work now. It's not going to work now. So everybody that sits here and tells you that, oh, you need to get into trades, bro. No. It hasn't worked out. And the people that are in it are not trying to get in, are not trying to get out. So everyone can can it with that whole narrative of you need to be a tradesman, bro. Because as soon as everybody starts being tradesmen, we end up back in the same position that we're at today, where everybody getting fired because are just having a lower standard of living because, you know, there's too many tradesmen, there's too many coders, there's too many IT professionals, and they can scrape bottom dollar. They can get an IT professional. The only thing that separates IT professionals from tradesmen is that you can get an IT professional from, you know, some low rent brown country, Pakistan, Cambodia, you know the countries. I don't have to tell you. A tradesman has to be here. And for a while now, a tradesman could jump the border and be here, but supposedly the narrative, what they're forcing into our faces, is that that's not the case. Was that they are pushing people back out of the borders, but I don't think that's the case. Like I said, it's all smoke and mirrors. But like I said, 2015 comes around, and an oil company buys the construction company I'm working at, and they want to make, you know, they want to put more money in their CEO's coffers. So what do? They shut down the plant and they move it to Mexico. And then they tell us that if you want your job still, you're going to have to move to Mexico with the plant. Knowing that once we got to Mexico, we would be paid way less than what we're getting here in America. In fact, we would never be able to come back. And is that plant still going? Probably, because it's, well, cheaper overall. But I doubt anybody who transferred is actually living a very good life. But what was I to do after that? After 2015, after a job went away, I started thinking. I took my payout then. By the way, I've already been through 2 recessions. This is just number 3. This feels more like a depression. So anybody out there who thinks this is bad, it is, compared to the other 2 that nobody really wanted to talk about, because we didn't fix the first one in 2008. But I started looking for things to do. Once again, the sirens blared that you need to learn the code. You need to learn the code. So what I do, I started learning JavaScript. By the way, before I even got into construction, I was kind of learning how to code. I was off and on with it, but this was, I guess, the push to it. As I seen that the companies were just going to continue doing this, where they just, you know, find cheaper labor, basically. Where they just find cheaper labor. They go overseas, they bring people here, they send work out to other places, and that just became the norm. So what was I to do? Learn the code. It was. So I hopped on certain websites, looked around, asked what people wanted, and it was JavaScript. And I tried to learn this JavaScript. I didn't get it. I went through the tutorials, all of them. Well, not all of them, but all of the tutorials that I tried. All 3 of them. And I just couldn't get it. And it just never panned out. And what ended up happening was the gig economy came along, and I started doing Postmates. And when Postmates first came out, of course, all these companies first come out, they have investor money to throw at you. So it was good for a while for what it was, but it wasn't getting me anywhere. But then again, I lived in such a state that I didn't spend a lot of money, so it worked out for me. But after Postmates started to get absorbed by DoorDash and started running out of investor money and started cutting rates, it was back to the grind once again. And I'm completely off with this storyline, but let's just say that through the 2019 2020s, I didn't code anymore. I just worked day labor jobs, temporary work, whatever got me by. And it eventually ended up at Amazon. And once again, Amazon was part-time. It wasn't really getting me anywhere. It was getting me by. But eventually, I set a goal. And I got my first certification. My what's it called? The AWS practitioner. I literally studied it on a dumb phone, actually, so there were no distractions. Yes, you can get websites on a dumb phone. I studied it on a dumb phone in between my breaks, because I didn't take the job seriously at Amazon. It was part-time anyways. And once I got that first certification, I barely passed, of course, but that gave me the confidence to just go ahead and just start doing more tech stuff. And 3 years after that, I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm pretty good at coding, pretty good at this tech stuff, pretty good at Linux. Let me go get a job, doing this stuff, because the promise was that you learn to code and you'll be prosperous, and they'll throw money at you. And as soon as I did, 2024, well, technically the end of 2023, they went ahead and started kicking the legs from out underneath the tech boom. And now we're here. I know a lot of things about tech. I know a lot of things about coding. You can say I'm intermediate at coding. I can do some JavaScript. I can do Python, blah, blah, blah. C++ is really where I actually got my certification. So all the other coding, languages kind of come easy, except for Haskell. Nobody likes Haskell. But here we are, a journey into tech, or not tech. And I make things with it, I build things, and maybe they'll get me somewhere someday, maybe they won't, but I don't know where I go from this point, really, with tech and coding, because everyone's convinced that the AI can do coding, AI can code, AI can do this, that, and other. You don't need coders anymore. And that's the narrative for running. And of course, there's a counter narrative depending on which CEO you ask. Some of them say that, yeah, you're going to still need to correct what the AI is doing, but most of them are very headstrong into it being that the AI will do all the coding from now on. So, what to do? Go back to the trades? Like I said, the trades are already cooked. Don't even bother. start your own business? Possibly, but everybody wants everything for free, especially if you don't have any clout, any rep behind your name. Okay, well, keep trying to code and outcode people. Well, there's a lot of coders now. There are coders that are children, basically. They're 10 years old and they can outcode a lot of the adults. So, what do you do? Is the question. Now that everybody's a coder, we have an overabundance of people in pretty much every sector, and nobody wants to pay. Let me know in the comments what you guys are doing to get by these days. Are you just running up the credit cards? Are you just, I don't know, are you a cracked elite coder? Do you run like AI agents and you just spam stuff and get pennies from whatever is generated from those agents? Throw some ideas out there in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you vibe with this. If you're stuck in life, you don't know what to do, and like I said, leave some comments on what you are doing to basically just survive. And I'll see you guys in the void of YouTube in the next one.